Santa Clara is not having an ordinary week, faithful. This is that strange blend of hope, risk, and pressure that only appears when a roster still believes it can fight for absolutely everything. Mykel Williams is working his way back from an ACL injury, while already carrying real future weight on that defensive line. A huge pass rush rumor is starting to move around the NFL. Brock Purdy just got another strong defense from someone who truly studies quarterbacks. And Dejon Stribbling is already trapped in football's most unfair argument: impact that does not always appear in the box score. If you feel this window the way I do, subscribe right now because today's read is heavy. The Mykel Williams situation hits this fan base hard because this is not only about a player trying to return from injury. This is about looking back at that 2025 defensive line, remembering how badly everything broke down physically, and still spotting a real piece of the future inside all that chaos. Through the first two games, when Nick Bosa was still drawing attention, when Bryce Huff was showing up to finish third downs, Mykel was already flashing signs that he was not just another young name trying to hang around in the rotation. He had something every contending defense loves: real usefulness. He could line up outside, he could slide inside, he could set the edge against the run and still bring enough power to bother blockers as a defensive tackle. That changes calls, that changes packages, that changes how an offense identifies protection before the snap. But then came MetLife. Then came the turf, the ACL, and that horrible silence of a season getting cut short before the player had even started showing the full picture. That is why 2026 cannot be handled with reckless urgency, but it also cannot be handled with fear. Mykel is 22 years old, 6'5", 265 pounds, on a fully guaranteed first-round contract with an average value just over $6.2 million per year, and he takes up only 1.6% of the cap in 2026. For a potential defensive line pillar, that is absolute gold. And with the fifth-year option available, San Francisco has contract time to turn recovery into a real foundation. Osa Odighizuwa arriving does not make Mykel's role smaller. It actually tells the truth about the plan. The pass rush was too weak last year to depend on one miracle. Bosa, Osa, Williams, Romello Height, Keon White, maybe even another veteran edge. All of that can become Raheem Morris's version of those fast, aggressive, almost suffocating NASCAR or turbo packages. The key is simple and brutal. If Mykel comes back and keeps setting the edge against the run, everything else opens up. The pass rush leap may not show up in September. Maybe it comes gradually, with confidence, reps, and that leg responding. But if it arrives in November, when the schedule tightens, then the fear flips to the other sideline. And now we get to the kind of rumor that makes the fan base freeze for a second, because the name alone changes the entire temperature of the conversation. TJ Watt linked to the 49ers in a market projection for next offseason. There is no offer on the table. There is no public negotiation moving between the Steelers and San Francisco. But there is enough noise here that nobody in Santa Clara should just laugh and hang up if that door ever opens. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler brought up the view from executives around the league that Watt could become a trade candidate in the next cycle. And the logic is not fantasy. Pittsburgh has a defender getting older, heavy guaranteed salaries in 2026 and 2027, and it may still have to think about a big contract for Nick Herbig. At some point, a franchise looks at the same position, sees concentrated money, sees the calendar, sees age, and starts doing the math. Football is that too. Emotion on Sunday, spreadsheets on Monday, courage at the right moment. Now place San Francisco inside that equation. The 49ers were built, culturally, around the defensive line. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan know January does not forgive a defense that has to blitz all the time just to create pressure. When you face elite quarterbacks, the cleanest path is winning with 4, closing windows, speeding up reads, breaking rhythm. So yes, the image of Nick Bosa on one side and TJ Watt on the other is ridiculous. It sounds like a video game until you remember serious contenders live by trying to find an edge the rest of the NFC cannot answer. But here is where smart fans separate themselves from pure impulse. Watt would be expensive. Expensive in salary. Expensive in draft picks. Expensive in planning. And age matters because this is not about buying 5 years of a rising star. This is about maybe buying an instant punch, a shorter window, a direct attack on the top. For a team with Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Bosa trying to maximize an era, the question hurts because it is a good one. When you feel like you are one dominant piece away, how far do you squeeze the future to chase a title right now? I do not see the Niners as desperate. I see them as dangerous because they can choose. If Watt ever truly reaches the market, San Francisco needs to be one of the teams that makes the call, measures the cost, and lets Pittsburgh feel there is a serious package out there. Because a defense with Bosa and Watt would not just be strong, it would create fear before the first snap. The Brock Purdy conversation is different because it does not begin in a negotiation room, or with injury rehab, or with a salary cap number. It begins with a play against the Chicago Bears where Purdy gets out of the pocket, fools two defenders, keeps the play alive, finds Kyle Juszczyk in the end zone, and then hits the Dougie after it. That might look like just a fun highlight, but for people who understand quarterback play, that is a massive message. Chase Daniel, who now breaks down quarterbacks after spending years in the NFL as a backup, looked at that kind of tape and said the 49ers and Brock Purdy are about to explode. And I know some people will roll their eyes because Daniel is not Kurt Warner, he is not Tom Brady, he is not Joe Montana. But the important part is not turning Chase Daniel into the ultimate authority. The important part is seeing the pattern. People who study the position, people who played the position, people who understand how quickly a read breaks when the pocket collapses, usually come away more impressed with Purdy than internet critics want to admit. Because Purdy has never won through the caricature. He is not the biggest. He does not have the scariest arm in the league. He does not walk onto the field looking like someone built in a lab, but he plays with brains, guts, and controlled improvisation. And in Kyle Shanahan's offense, that becomes poison when everything is synced up. The play against Chicago was pure instinct, but it was not chaos. It was a quarterback feeling pressure, buying time, keeping his eyes alive, and understanding where the right outlet would show up. And there is another detail a lot of people ignore. He did all of that in a season where he dealt with turf toe for a big part of the way. So when someone looks at 2026 and imagines a healthier Purdy, with more rhythm, and now with Mike Evans as a new target to attack defenses, the excitement is not coming from nowhere. It comes from remembering what this offense looks like when the quarterback trusts his body, trusts the system, and trusts that the receiver will win at the right spot. Now I want to feel where the fan base is at. Are you more excited about Purdy's creative jump outside the pocket, or about his fit with Mike Evans changing the ceiling of this offense? Because if both things hit at the same time, the NFC is going to have a very serious problem to solve. And now we get to a topic that might be the easiest one to misunderstand, because it goes against the most common habit casual fans have, opening the box score and thinking that tells the whole story. Dejon Stribbling was the 49ers' first pick in the 2026 draft. He came off the board one spot after the first round ended, and a lot of people immediately threw the reach label on him. To some analysts, he looked more like a late second-round guy, so the judgment was already waiting before the kid even put on the uniform for a serious practice. And I understand the natural question. How many catches? How many yards? How many touchdowns? If a guy is picked that high, everybody wants quick numbers, visible impact, the kind of explosion that shows up in fantasy and on the broadcast graphic. But Kyle Shanahan football has never been that simple. This offense lives in the details. It lives on angles. It lives on motion, second-level blocking, a defensive back getting moved out of the play, a safety hesitating because a receiver sold the vertical threat and then put his body in the right place. That is exactly where losing Jauan Jennings to the Minnesota Vikings matters. Jennings was not just attitude, third down catches, and personality. He was maybe the best blocking wide receiver on the roster. When you lose that kind of piece, you are not just losing targets. You are losing part of the run game machinery, part of the clean violence on the edges, part of the reason a run or a short pass turns into a big gain. So when Shanahan shows excitement about landing one of the best blocking wide receivers in college football, that is not just pretty talk to justify the pick. That is a clue about his role. Stribling is 6'2", over 200 pounds, ran a 4.36 at the combine, and can stretch the field. That matters, of course. His speed can create more room for Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, George Kittle, and Ricky Pearsall to work with comfort. But maybe his first impact in 2026 does not come through 600 yards. Maybe it comes through 30 catches and a pile of plays you only notice when someone stops the tape and sees a cornerback removed from the play, a safety losing the angle, a running back finding daylight because the rookie did the dirty work. And that is the unfair part. If Stribling blocks like a veteran, helps the run game, improves yards after catch for other players, and becomes a functional piece in heavier formations, some people will still call it a mistake because they did not see a big number on the screen. But contenders cannot build rosters to please shallow spreadsheets. Contenders need players who win snaps, players who unlock the right call, players who make the offense more physical without announcing it in giant letters. Maybe Stribling has to prove more than others because of where he was picked. Fine, that pressure comes with it. But if he becomes the kind of receiver who blocks, threatens deep, and does not force Shanahan to rip pages out of the playbook when he steps on the field, then the conversation changes. And it changes fast, even if some people realize it late. In the end, the thread connecting all of this is contender pressure. Mykel Williams is patience with ambition. The TJ Watt rumor is big imagination with a difficult price tag. Brock Purdy is respect earned on tape, not empty noise. And Dejon Stribbling is the kind of bet that may look small to people who only chase numbers, but huge to people who understand function. Santa Clara is building answers for January, not trying to win a May debate. And if this team gets the timing right, a lot of rush takes are going to age badly. If you want to follow this Niners chase every day, subscribe and stay with me.